Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered, but I'm rocking with my loved ones. Let you know that.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today on the show, we have somebody very important to me, very important to Adam.
Yep.
We're all in the same sponsorship family. He's my grandpa.
Yeah.
Willie, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me today. It's awesome to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we get started, I just want to say it's an honor. You know, Willie, I couldn't have become the man that I became without you, without your guidance. You have been the most consistent man in my life since I have gotten clean, probably ever. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are always ducking in and out of my life. You know, this last week, I was doing some groups on father and son relationships and what that looks like and how it affects us, and we're talking about like father figures and stuff like that, and like male relationships are super important, you know, and you've been sponsoring basically the whole time I've been clean, right? There was like 2 years where I didn't like you, and so I got another sponsor, you know, but for the most part you've been sponsoring me, and yeah, man, just your consistency. Like, even when you weren't sponsoring me, like, our relationship never changed. Every time I was going through something, you're the person I called. And I just want to thank you, man. Like, you've absolutely helped me. You are someone that I trust with everything. My deepest, darkest thoughts, my deepest, darkest feelings. And for anybody who's listening, man, I think that is something that the world is missing. Right? Like I used to think to myself, bro, like how those who are addicted today are more fortunate, right? Like, how are we more fortunate? Like, I'm an addict, bro. I can't keep a pipe out of my mouth. I can't stop using. I'm using against my own will. Like, I keep choosing drugs over my family. Like how am I more fortunate? And I'm more fortunate because I have men like you, and I have men like Mike in my life, right? Men like Juan, like Worry, like Sergio, like all these, you know, Mario, like all these people that I just love and care about, and we have like this language of love that we get to be there for each other, right? And like, I get to be the sponsor I am today because of the example that you set, and I mean that with all of me. I remember Caesar, one day he was like, bro, like, I don't know how you do it. Like, you answer the phone all the time. Like, if you don't answer, like, you call me back. Like, you're always there for me. Like, I don't know how you do it. And I thought to myself, it's because I was taught that. Right? Like, you were always there for me, and to this day you're still always there for me, because like we're never cured. I'm still, you know, sick. I'm not as sick as I used to be, you know what I'm saying, but I'm still sick, and I still like when there's thoughts that I can't talk about because I'm embarrassed, or I'm ashamed of my thoughts, or I'm ashamed of my feelings, or I'm ashamed of my behaviors, like, you're the first person I reach out to, because I know that there's no judgment whenever we talk, right? There's no ridicule. There's no, like, even like that residue. You ever share something with somebody and then afterwards, like, man, I shouldn't have fucking said that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, why did I open my mouth about that?
Yeah.
Like, I never feel like that after I have a conversation with you. It's never a regret of me expressing my thoughts or my feelings with you. It's always like, man, I'm so glad that I was able to get that off my chest. You know, so I want to thank you. I wouldn't be the man I am today without you. I wouldn't be the dad I am today without you. I wouldn't be the sponsor I am today without you. And like, my recovery wouldn't be the same. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have stayed clean. I'm not, you know, I was very willing, like you talked about before we opened, like, the God and the program in me is what keeps me here. But like, I truly believe that God knew exactly what he was doing when he got us together. So I just want to thank you, Willie, and tell you how much I love you, and we appreciate you coming on the podcast.
I love you too.
Yeah, and because of that,
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things that you taught him. So I'm grateful for that too, Willie. So let's get started. we started the same way every time. What was your childhood like? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Did you have siblings? Did you have both parents in the house? Things like that.
I have one brother and one sister. We grew up with we were raised by our parents. Had a pretty decent childhood. We didn't want for nothing. My dad supplied everything. He was the perfect functioning alcoholic. He made sure we had a roof over our heads, clothes, food, and he kept it real simple. You know, whatever you need, you let me know, and he did. He did. When we were 11 years old, we didn't like the clothes that my mom bought us, so he said, well, you know, go get some jobs and buy your own then. So we did. We got paper routes.
Okay.
We were able to buy our own clothes.
Yeah.
But he was still there. I would imagine, though, that eventually he would have bought what we wanted anyway. But he was happy that we were growing up in a good manner. My parents were awesome. You know, very caring and very loving. I have one brother and one sister. They're on a different path, and I accept that today. I also accept that whatever they do is what they do, and I don't have a no matter what love for my family. So I hope that doesn't sound bad to some people out there, but I can't stand the disease of addiction, and it's still in my family, so I choose to stay away from my family. What that means is I don't go over for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. When they invite me somewhere, I might go. My niece had a baby shower a couple months ago. I went for a half hour. I made an appearance. I left because I know better. Because then everything comes out after that. Because the freaks come out at night. And generally, I had a pretty decent childhood. Things were good. I was always sick. I still get a lot of colds. I was always sick, so I was always with my grandparents. While my parents were, you know, my brother and sister were in sports, so I was always homesick. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and I had a less than attitude. Like I felt less than because I was always sick. I felt less than because I was very thin and I couldn't do much. So that's where the negativity started. When I got to high school, junior high, let's start with junior high. Junior high, I was a nerd. I used to love reading books. And until my cousin of mine walked up to me and said, hey, you got to make a choice. You want to hang with the lowriders or you want to hang with the homies? But you got to make a choice. He was in gangs, and because he was in gangs, I had to be somewhere.
Yeah.
So I grew up that day. And I chose to hang with the lowriders. My grandpa gave me a car, so I started lowriding in junior high. That was kind of cool. I liked that part because that's where all the glamour came in. 8th grade, driving a lowrider to junior high. And it brought many things. I did really good in my freshman year. I got straight A's, and then somewhere where I finally got my license, and as a sophomore year, that's when everything started to go. Mainly, my security in my mind left. I started drinking. I started hanging around with people because I was one of very few people that had a car. In 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. So I got a chance to be around a lot of girls and a lot of homies and people. And I remember I would go do things with them, you know, and then I'd go home and read books. Yeah. So I didn't have a normal high school type thing. And then in my senior year, I was doing good on credit. So all I did was cruise. At night, I drank. And life was good until one day came home, and I think it was my dad that left first. My parents were going through a divorce, and he was like, how do I handle this? You know, and then, of course, I have people that know how to handle that stuff, you know. Me and my brother were working at bar backs at my uncle's bar, so we were able to steal cases of beer from my uncle's bar and have instant friends. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. Mm. From there, they introduced us to all the other stuff. Back then, it was marijuana and angel dust. Angel dust was popular back then when I was in high school. Mm. So hadn't graduated to the rest of the stuff yet. I would do a little bit of sherm, a little bit of speed, not much of that. I didn't like it. Alcohol. And then I'd go to school. I mean, we'd wake up with hangovers and still go to school. But my big thing was to go to school because that was the big thing that my dad wanted us to do. He taught us to, you know, he said, my dad told us, he said, I want you to do 3 things in life. I want you to graduate. I don't want you to do drugs. And I don't want you to sleep with your brother's girlfriend. And only one of those I accomplished. I graduated from high school.
Those are some good goals, though.
Some good guidance.
Yeah, for sure. And so, just for the listeners, you grew up in San Bernardino, California, right? Okay.
So, well, my high school years were Colton.
Okay.
Junior high and high school was Colton, and then I went back to San Bernardino somewhere, 1985, I think, something like that, 86, somewhere around there. Yeah, and then the using got big because my parents sold the house. And when they sold the house, I mean, there was a lot of stuff that when our parents told us they were getting divorced, everything just started to go from there. Yeah. We were hanging around with people. We were doing some crazy stuff. I mean, I remember I hit out this guy who was wanted for murder for like a year till they finally caught him because he ended up at his girlfriend's house, so they caught him there. Yeah. But I hit him out for like a year, and it was some work, you know. I mean, stuff like that. Then I started going to jail. You know, first time I went to jail for attempted murder. I was involved in a shooting. Back then, those were real popular. You know, didn't learn my lessons at all yet. You know, until I remember after I got out of jail for the attempted murder charge, I tried to join the Marines. But they didn't want me. Well, they did, but I guess I didn't keep up with the group because I was still recovering from drugs. Mm-hmm. What happened was I was planning to quit, but they took me early, so I was still loaded when I went into the Marines, and I couldn't keep up, so they discharged me. You know, I got a ESL, entry-level separation. It was, I was grateful for the experience. But that really, really showed me that I was an addict. And then I just said, screw it, I'm just going to be an addict. And homelessness came, doing things against my own will, like being a part of activities. Like I would go with people to collect. I was the driver, and I didn't like doing that. I didn't like robbing places. I was the getaway driver. Mm. I didn't like doing it, but I did it anyway because that's what we do.
What drugs were you doing at this time now?
Oh, now I was totally in love with speed. And the reason I was in love with speed is I got an experience. This dope cooker took us to San Diego, and we hung out on the beach for 2 weeks. It was awesome. But he showed me the correct way to do crack. He bought a bunch of crack with the speed that he sold because he would not get high in his own supply. And I learned to love crack, but I couldn't afford it. So, and in the area that I lived in, we were not. Mexicans were not allowed to buy crack in San Bernardino when I was getting loaded. Yeah. You could not do that. So I learned how to do more speed.
Okay.
I learned how to smoke it from there on. When I tried the crack, the smoking anything, and I would smoke anything that I could. I remember trying to smoke all kinds of stuff, pills. They don't burn very well. I remember one time I tried to smoke. I tried to smoke an aspirin, and the only thing I got was a sore throat. Yeah, I was a true smoker. Cigarettes. I used to smoke whatever I can, from a corncob pipe, speed from bongs. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. Wherever you go, I mean, it was a big thing. If I could master a speed bong,
Yeah.
that was like, wow, you're the man and shit in my head.
Yeah.
But somewhere after that, when my grandfather died, he put a gun in his mouth and he pulled the trigger.
Wow.
And I cleaned up the mess, and it was not a big deal. When he killed himself, I remember him telling me, "Hey, Willie, I can't let your grandma die before me. It's not going to happen." Not even realizing what he was telling me. And the day my grandma got out of the hospital, he killed himself.
You said you cleaned it up?
Yeah.
Like you cleaned up the mess?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you say it wasn't a big deal. What do you mean?
Well,
Were you just numb to it, or?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loaded as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, loaded
Yeah.
as hell. Not understanding what death is.
Yeah.
And this is important because I didn't understand what death was. It was the first real person that died in my life was my grandfather. And I didn't understand what it was all about. I just, we did drugs. We did all this stuff, and, who cares? Nobody cares. And...
You didn't care at that point,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Because, the first time I went to jail for attempted murder, my parents were crying, like, what are you doing? Like, how did this happen? And they were blaming themselves. It wasn't their fault. But I didn't care. And then when my grandpa did that, it was like, oh, well, he was old anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, so we went on until I got clean. And even 3 years into my recovery, I didn't really realize that I was an addict. I didn't even realize that what I had been doing was wrong. I didn't even realize that recovery was a good thing for me. I didn't. All I knew is that when I got clean, the judge said, do this or you're going to go to prison for 16 years because one more time I was involved in a shooting. And I remember I was sitting with somebody at work. I worked nights. And we did our lunch together. She was kind of new, very quiet, but we would talk at lunchtime. And she said, hey, I was talking to her, and she was telling me that she left her husband and her 4 kids. And I asked her why. She said, I'm tired of that lifestyle. And she goes, well, what did he do? He was doing drugs every day. And I said, well, what do you mean he did drugs today? I said, didn't you do drugs? She said, no, I tried it twice. I said, how do you do drugs only twice? And she said, I did not like the way it made me feel. And the light bulbs came on. That's when I knew I was an addict. Because I liked the way drugs made me feel. So there goes the real recovery started then. I was on my 11th step by then. And that's when the real recovery came. And that's when the God conscious came. I knew that I had a higher power that had been protecting me, because 3 weeks before I got busted that last time for being part of a murder, I was sitting at somebody's house. This girl, she said, hey, Willie, so-and-so has big dimes. And if you get on your hands and knees and ask God to save you, I'll go buy you one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I did, and they were good size. They were good. So she bought me 2 because I got on my hands and I played it well, right? Asked God to save me and everything from the lifestyle, from the drugs and everything. And I didn't realize that that was something spiritual. I didn't know what spiritual was. Okay, this is my concept of spiritual before that moment. I was an altar boy. I did altar boy things, and then the devil got me.
Yeah.
That was my concept of spirituality until that day. And it didn't come, I didn't realize it till it came 3 years later, because I got busted 3 weeks later after I prayed. So God answered prayers. He answered my prayers. I didn't even understand it till years later, 3 years later.
So was that ultimatum given to you by the judge? Like, get 16 years or get clean? Was that the pivotal moment and
That was
what got you into recovery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it took a little bit more than that, but that was the moment where I really seen that I need to do something. So I called my dad and, hey, Pop, they just offered me 16 years, and he was crying. And then I said, I need a lawyer. Get me a good lawyer, and things will get better. And he did. He got me. He paid for a good lawyer, and they got me off with a program. The drug court or San Bernardino program. It was on its second year.
Oh,
So I got a chance to be new in that. I went to a place, outpatient program, and I started doing my treatment there. And the judge told me, do it or else. They really wanted to give me, they bargained from 16 years to 6 years. They really wanted to do that, but the lawyer my dad hired was really good, so they had to, apparently they had to give me a chance.
Yeah.
So the judge gave me a chance, and he sat in court and he said, go ahead, screw up one time, and I'm sending you to prison because I don't like your attitude. Because I didn't have one of those really good attitudes.
Yeah.
And you know what? And today today I can still get rebellious. Yeah. Yeah, I remember my first meeting. One of my first meetings I went to, the lady wouldn't sign my court card because I was late. So as soon as I graduated from the program, I didn't need no court card, so I went late every single time, and I made sure she see me.
hey, you still do that?
And I still do that. I'll show you attitude, but I do it now, and I still practice a lot of God stuff. Being late to a meeting is not a big deal to me because I'd rather be in a meeting late than not be at one at all. You know, and that's a big message to me because I believe that my higher power, I work with my higher power all day long. And I'm in conscious contact with my higher power, and I know when I'm not. That's the wonderful thing about being around this long, about having 28 years clean, is when I'm not with my higher power, I know it, and I know it fast. I don't know about you, but I remember my first counselor told me, who was also my grant sponsor at the time, he told me, he said, here's the trick to recovery, Willie. He said, when we're out there using, we don't realize that what we're doing is a lot of damage and wrong. And then we further our recovery and we realize that we did some wrong stuff. We further our recovery, we realize that we just did something wrong. We further our recovery and we realize we're about to do something wrong and we do it anyway. We further our recovery, we're about to do something wrong, we don't do it. We further our recovery and we see something coming months in advance and we don't do it. He said, that's what recovery is. And that came from my grant sponsor. He taught me that at the time. He was also my counselor, by the way. And he taught me that. And that was one of the most wonderful things because that's the goal. It's still the goal to this day. I can sit there and I'll be talking to one of my sponsees and I could see something coming. I tell him, you know what? Be careful if you do that because this is what might happen. You know, and a lot of times it's experience is what it is.
Some people think you're fortune telling.
You know,
Because it plays out just like you say it. Sometimes.
it's funny because when I first got clean, everybody would have this running joke about Willie, and it'd be about a crystal ball that Willie had. You know what I'm saying?
They gave me one when I got 20 years clean.
Oh, did they?
The females in my life, I'm not the ones I slept with. I got friends that are females, a lot of them,
Yeah.
and they gave me a crystal ball for my 20th birthday with my grand sponsor and my sponsor there, who have a lot of clean time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all experience.
Yeah, it is. Like George used to say, if you stick around here long enough, you know what keeps us here, and if you stick around here even longer, you know what takes us out. You know what I'm saying? And I was talking to some guys last week, and I was telling them, bro, nobody's fucking special in here. Nobody is unique. Nobody is in their own lane. Like you guys are all fucking addicts. You know what I'm saying? Whether you drank it, smoked it, snorted, boofed it, like whatever you did with your substance, and whatever substance it was, you think like me, you feel like me, and you act like me. So like, we have to remember that if you think you're like, I told them straight out, I said, if you're sitting in this room and you think that you're fucking different, you're fucking yourself, bro. You're going to end up in the same fucking place over and over, thinking that you're uniquely different, and you don't got to do what the rest of us have to do to stay clean, bro. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, it is experience. Yeah.
You know that saying, experience, strength, and hope?
Mm-hmm.
That's it right there. Mm. If we continue to roll like that, that's what ends up happening. I mean, how many times are we stuck in a position where once we play it all the way through, well, what's going to happen if I do this? And we take a look at it before it happens, chances are we got a chance to change our mind and make the right decisions.
Yeah. I also think it's important to have people in your life that you can bounce these ideas off of, right? Like a group conscience. Me and my boys have, right?
Yeah.
And we saved Wancho a lot of fucking heart.
A lot of heartache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's important because in you know, with sponsorship, it says that fucking like it's pretty hard to spot self-deception by yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, like even with 11 years of experience, I could easily pinpoint and see what people are doing and help them maneuver through that. But when it comes to I'm so clouded by personal feelings that it's really hard to maneuver through my own personal judgment. Sometimes I just need to talk to someone and they could just like, and then it's almost like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right. You know what I'm saying? And to be able to kind of help, have other people help me maneuver through my fucked up thinking and my fucked up feelings is important, bro. So I don't end up doing fucked up behaviors. Yeah, because I don't know, man. I'm sick. You know what I'm saying? Like doing certain negative behaviors still sounds good to me sometimes. Still sounds like, and I could justify it, rationalize it, and minimize it, bro.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could do all that stuff. Like even like cheating, hurting somebody, you know, stealing, like all those things sound like good ideas sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And then like I have to talk to people that love me and care about me, and fuck, I even want to say they know what's best for me, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't know what's good for me, and sometimes even when I think I know what's good for me, it doesn't feel good because it's good for me, and I'm not used to good for me. Mm-hmm. You know, there's still part of my spirit that screams out for failure, that screams out for hurt, that screams out for toxicity, that screams out for bad behaviors, you know what I'm saying? And so like healthy doesn't feel good all the time. Good for me doesn't feel good all the time. It feels the opposite. It feels uncomfortable, right? Like I'm listening to the 4 Agreements again, right? And so like that book talks about like the agreements that we make with ourselves and like sometimes I still have a hard time letting go of some of those agreements of what I deserve and what I don't deserve. You know what I'm saying? And because my spirit is in agreement that I deserve to be treated a certain way, when I get treated in a good way, it feels uncomfortable. Or when I get treated in a healthy way, it's like, oh, that's not the way it's supposed to be, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think having, and my story is, right, like having men in my life, right, that I could bounce ideas off of and trust. And they say if you have 5 good friends, that you're lucky. Mm-hmm. Right? That is a very uncommon thing, right? And I have 5 solid, maybe more than that, bro. You know, 6, 7, 8 people that are really good fucking people to me, that are really close to me, that I could really bounce ideas off of. You know what I'm saying? And and like I was sharing at the beginning of the podcast, I feel like that's one of the gifts that recovery has given me. And my mom even seen it.
Yeah, because people in their regular life who don't participate in a fellowship like that and get honest with each other aren't able to create that.
Yeah. I have a
Not
family
6, 7, 8, 9 times,
Yeah. I have a family member who's going through, I'm not going to say his name, but he's going through like some mental health issues and not wanting to be here and feeling like the pressure and the weight of the world on his shoulders. And we were talking and I was like, bro, you could reach out to me anytime you want. Like I'm here for you, like this and that. And like you could tell, bro, he was super into the conversation. But it pretty much ended. It was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to reach out to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, man. Having people in recovery, like, is a gift, bro. And I don't know if I shared about this on the podcast, but like my mom would always tell me that, like, you are so lucky. You have some of the greatest friends in the world. And the greatest friends in the world are part of the program. That's what she's talking about. Because she sees them show up and show out, bro. You know, when my mom passed, who was here? The program. You know what I'm saying? Like the program showed up. The people close to me were like really there for me. Like hitting me up, making sure I was good, right? Like conversations I had with you where like you didn't say nothing and you're a fucking talker just like me. You know what I'm saying? It's passed down for generation to generation. But like I remember that one conversation I left the Tuesday meeting, or maybe it was a Thursday meeting, and I remember that night, Mike, because somebody told me that, like, oh, your mom's in a better place. And that shit pissed me off, bro. Like, I wanted to crack him in the fucking mouth. Like, who the fuck are you? You don't even know me, bro. You don't even fucking know me. How fucking dare you tell me that my mom's in a better place?
I think that was a Wednesday.
It might have been a Wednesday. But I remember because even you got upset. And you came up to me and you're like, bro, like, who the fuck is this dude to tell you that, bro? Yeah. Like, and I get it, right? And it had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with me. But at that point, it's like, bro, if you're not part of my circle, like, don't talk to me about my pain. Don't talk to me about what the fuck I'm going. You have no idea how hard I'm struggling, right? Not just to get loaded, but like how hard I'm struggling not to fucking hurt somebody, bro. Like, and then you're gonna fucking sit here and try to, like, I don't even know you, bro. I don't know you from the guy in the corner, bro. And you're fucking sitting here telling me. And I remember being angry that day, and I called you, and I remember talking to you about my anger towards God, my anger towards being an addict, because I felt like, why can't I just have a fucking beer like a normal person? Why can't I just drink a beer? Like it wasn't about getting loaded. It was just about, like, I was mad that I couldn't be normal. Like, I can't just drink a beer and not ruin my whole fucking life. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, this is a bullshit, right? And I remember just being angry at that dude, being angry at my mom for leaving me, like being angry at like all this different stuff. And I remember calling you and you stayed quiet the whole conversation. The whole conversation. You didn't tell me that everything was going to be okay. You didn't tell me that my mom was going to be in a better place. You didn't tell me that, like, you didn't tell me not to get loaded. You didn't tell me not to hurt nobody. You didn't tell me nothing, Willie. All you did was allow me to get all that shit off my chest. And that goes back to the experience. Knowing when to open up your mouth and comfort somebody and hug someone, and knowing when to shut the fuck up. Right? And I remember at the end of the conversation, I said, Willie, I just want to thank you for shutting the fuck up. and that was what I needed in that moment, bro. And like, going back to my point, right, is like having people in my life, bro, to just be there is one of the greatest gifts, bro. Right? And we don't co-sign. Look at, bro, like, a lot of people get a bad idea. They're like, oh, all people do is bitch and complain, bro. Look at, this is a program of solution. Right? This ain't a program of bitch about your fucking feelings and bitch about your life and then, like, not do something about it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that a lot, bro. Like, when people call me, I just talked to this one young guy, bro. Right? He's homeless. He got 4 months clean. Right? The last few conversations, I'm like, bro, you need to go to treatment. Treatment's not just about being clean. It's about getting you back on your feet. They'll teach you how to work, get you a resume. Like they can help you with all that, right? And he don't listen. And so the last conversation I had with him, I'm like, look, bro, what else can I tell you? You called me a month ago when you had 90 days clean, and you're complaining about the same shit today a month later, and you're unwilling to do anything because he's telling me how, like, people are shutting him out. They're not answering his calls anymore. And I told him, I said, bro, like, it's to the point, like, why should I answer your phone calls? It's not that I don't want to be here, right? It's not that I don't want to love you. It's not that I don't want to care for you. But what else could I say to you? What else could I say to you, bro? Right? We should lean on each other. We should care about each other. We should cry on each other's shoulder. Like, we should, like, love and be. But, bro, we should also be telling motherfuckers the truth. We should also be, like encouraging people. And for me and my own sanity, like, there has to be a program of action, bro. This isn't like a program of bitch about your fucking feelings and bitch about what you're going through and not do nothing about it, bro. You got to be willing to do something. If I tell you to read this chapter, work this step, call these people, right, go to this treatment center, and if you're unwilling to do that month after month after month, what else could I do for you? I can't carry you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it's a part of my own personal recovery, right? And Juan's one of the people, bro. Right? He told me, he said, bro, I know you're going to get tired of me. I always do a stupid boy. I know you're going to get tired of me, like talking about this stuff. I said, look at Juan, I'm not going to get tired of hearing you talk about this as long as you don't get tired of hearing me tell you the truth. If I could tell you the truth, then you could keep talking, bro. The moment you get mad about me telling you the truth and what it really is, then that's when we probably don't need to talk about it anymore, right? But Juan is also working in steps. He's also praying about this. He's also getting into the action, right? Some of these behaviors don't go away right away, right? It's, like, recovery is not a quick fix, and we talk about that on the podcast all the time. It's not that instant gratification that we get from using drugs, bro. Like, it's something that we got to continuously do. We got to walk through pain, a lot of uncomfortable days, right? But eventually we get into a place of grace, bro. Yeah.
So, Willie.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned you wanted to talk about it too. I just hit 2 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you what it was like, your early experiences in recovery, what it was like then.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were explaining to us that it's a little different now.
I remember watching this movie. It was called Zoot Suit. In my addiction with that guy that we were hiding out. And I remember watching that movie and over and over and over with him. So it planted some stuff in my head. So when I got clean and I was going to meetings, there were different kind of meetings, but there were generally two different kinds of meetings. There were meetings that said, sit down, shut the fuck up and listen. And then there was meetings that said, we're going to love you till you can love yourself. Mm-hmm. So I started going to the meetings that said, we're going to love you till you can love yourself. Because I had watched Zoot Suit enough of negative attitude movies in my life, Scarface too, enough movies like that in my life to last a lifetime. So I didn't want to go to those meetings anymore. Because what happened at those meetings was eventually somebody was pulling out a knife or throwing a chair or getting into fights. You know, in my recovery, I remember one time I went to one of those meetings. I took my girlfriend, and somebody hit on her during the meeting that I knew. And next thing you know, we were going to fight in the meeting, all because of that kind of attitude. Mm-hmm. I learned later on that next time, just take somebody outside and you ask them not to do that in a nice way. Instead of having to, what the heck you doing? And that's where I'm at today. There's different kinds of meetings out there. Mm-hmm. There's meetings that separate all kinds of stuff. Like there's meetings that are men's meetings, there's women meetings, there are LGBTQ meetings, there's all kinds of meetings. And I don't single out anybody. I will tell you this much. I sponsor anybody. I sponsor women. I sponsor all kinds of different people because I don't believe in that segregation. I don't believe in just having to label somebody or something. And while we're on that subject, I just don't do things and try my best to stay in principle. If my God and my sponsor suggest that I do something a different way, I'm going to roll with that. And if it's out of, I'd rather follow my sponsor and my God and do something wrong and apologize for it later than to not do it and miss the message. And to this day, once in a while, I have to make an amends. Hey, I'm sorry I was out of principle. But it doesn't happen that much because I still follow principles. I still work steps. I still work traditions. And right now, Adam and I are doing concepts. I mention that because we got to keep going. It's not just. I have to keep going with the steps, the traditions, the concepts, and in recovery, I have to keep going with that because I need to grow. Because if I don't grow, I'm gonna go. Because every year is changing, and if we don't keep up with the changing times, then we're gonna fall to the wayside.
Yep.
My first sponsor had, I think, 25 years clean, and he fucking relapsed. He relapsed. You know, he had reservations for years. I remember when we would work a step. We worked my 4th step, and he would talk about how if he could only smoke weed again. And I'm like, Jesus, we just got done with my 4th step. I'm trying to stay clean, and he mentions that shit. I was scared. It's one of the reasons why when I had 11 years clean, I had to get another sponsor. And that sponsor, he was a good friend of mine, really good friends. I used to watch when he went to conventions because he spoke all over the world. I would go watch his house. But then he told me, he said, Willie, I'm not too sure. We're too good of friends and we're the same. It's probably not going to work out, and it didn't. Because he back then, this was 16 years ago, 17 years ago. Cell phones were starting to get big back then, and he would not answer his cell phone. And I said, dude, I need somebody who's going to answer the phone. Well, my sponsor don't answer his phone. And then I decided, you know what, I need to get another sponsor. This guy's not keeping up with the times. You know, and don't get me wrong, I believe in traditions. My grand sponsor is one of the oldest living members and has the most clean time in this area. He's got 60 years clean, and he believes in traditions, and I believe in traditions too. But at the same time, my sponsor is always talking about keeping up with what's going on in today's world. Thank you, Joe, for that.
Yeah.
You know, and when you were talking earlier about when I was just listening, I had to learn how to do that.
No.
I called my sponsor when your mom died, and he said, Willie, you know what? If you don't know what to say, don't say nothing. He said, maybe you just need to listen. So on your phone number on my phone, I pulled it up earlier. I'll show you later, but it says just listen. So when you call me, it shows your face. It says just listen. I have to do simple stuff like that, you know, because I'm not perfect. I don't need to say everything that's on my mind. Lots of times I need to go with what God says and what my sponsor suggests is. That's where my contact really is. And my biggest contact with God is nothing more than the truth and to carry a message to others. I mean, it stopped being, I still get a little selfish, but it stopped being real selfish for me like 8 years ago when I stopped dating. Because that was getting me in a lot of trouble because I have a lot to learn in those areas. You know, so the best way to learn from it is stop doing something wrong, do an inventory, find out what it is. Like if I ever want to get into a relationship again, a romantic one, then I got to investigate to see what happens in those areas. I've done that, but I'm still not there yet because I'm waiting on God. God to bring me the answer, the person in my life that I could share it with if it happens. If it doesn't, oh well. For all those people that are seeking relationships new in your recovery, I went almost 2 years without any kind of relationship because I knew that if I got into a relationship that I wasn't gonna make it. I was gonna relapse. And I hope for all those people that are in relationships and you ever hear this and then you relapse because you got dumped or somebody went to jail or something and you go back out there because right now I got a couple of sponsors that just did that. if this is you, hopefully someday after you relapse or something goes wrong that you know, just work on yourself. Because you can't be no good to anybody if you don't work on yourself first. One more thing I want to mention about sponsorship. My grand sponsor, his name's Norm. And he says something. I had one big conversation with him one time, and he was telling me about his profession. But he always says it, and I always have to remember this. But he said, just stay in the center. Whatever you're doing, just stay in the center. If you stay in the center, you can't go wrong, and you won't have to leave that area wherever you're at if it's a good area. Just stay in the center. And my sponsor talks about love. He always talks about the loving way to be a sponsor. You know, I had to let go of a couple of sponsees lately, and he just told me, just, you know, tell him with love, hey, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell him why. Just tell him you don't, because sometimes Adam and my other two favorite sponsees, I call them the Three Stooges. They always tell me that I do too much, you know, and I know I do, but I follow God, and this is October. I'm working on me. I'm spending a lot of time. I've done an inventory already, and I really figured out that I'm still an addict. When I help people, I can help them big time. But now I'm starting to have a little bit of boundaries, and I need to learn that. I need to learn that. I threw my phone in the corner last night to watch the Dodger game, and I didn't answer it till this morning. You know, and I don't normally do that. I'm always on my phone. I'm always there for people. But once in a while, I got to take time off for me. So if you're out there, there are people in the program that can love you. You gotta let them.
Right.
And if you don't, and if you go to a meeting, like I went to a meeting Thursday, I spoke at a meeting in Corona, and it was a very loving meeting. And you know, go to those meetings where you want to be at, not the meetings that you hear, oh, nobody better mess with me, you know, all this kind of negative stuff. You know, go to the ones that are going to tell you, we're going to love you too. You can love yourself and be a part of. And if you get a sponsor, call that sponsor. Because remember, if you know, I have not met one person in the program that I'm involved in, the NA program, that has ever not worked steps and stayed clean for 10 years and lived a beautiful life. I don't work steps anymore to stay clean. I work steps to have a better life. Because if I don't have a better life, I know I'm going to go backwards. I remember 10, 15 years ago looking at commercials and having dreams about having a tequila. Having these drinks that they show on commercials, thinking that it would be okay. 6 months ago, somebody I know, she has virgin daiquiris, and I stay away from her, but I thought about that, and I said, wow, what would be the point?
Yeah.
You know, I'll just drink some Kool-Aid. Shit. Same shit, probably.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need that in my life today.
So I do want to talk about another point that I would like to speak about, like your daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So you have been a single father. How old is she now?
She's 19.
19. So for 19 years, right? You've been a single father.
Yeah.
The primary caregiver, right? I know that like when you first got, or like when she was first born, you should take her to meetings. You know what I'm saying? So like, what was that like?
Scary. Scary, because my dream of having kids was I was going to be married, making lots of money, having a big, beautiful house, and it didn't turn out like that. I got together with Summer's mom, and we had a baby boy, and he turned out to not be mine biologically. But I just heard from him on the way over here today, and he wants to come live with me after he gets out of jail, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do on that, but well, I already know I'm going to do something to at least help him.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was in the picture. He turned out to be mine, so I decided that we were going to have another kid, and we did, and her name is Summer, and it was scary because I had these 2 machines that were hooked up to my shoulders to keep her alive because she had that SID stuff. She was very sick when she was born, just like I was. So these 2 machines kept her alive, and it was rough because her mom, when Summer was a month old, her mom decided to go back to drugs. So I raised her, and it's been one of the most beautiful goals that I've had. You know, she's an awesome kid. She graduated from high school. She's going to a college of her choice, Santa Barbara, a full scholarship of her choice, because Narcotics Anonymous, God, and her dad and a lot of women in the program taught her how to make some goals and follow them. Good goals. Not like the ones I had. My goals were about being a badass in prison. That came from the first time I got arrested. God, you know what? I once had a goal of being president, but I must have been super high back then. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not the thing to be right now in these times.
No.
So back to my daughter, she's doing great. I have a wonderful relationship with her. She comes home for the summer. She's on her second year of college. And she's a wonderful student, and that's one of the beautiful things that my mom taught me, is to stay in school. And we're both able to teach my daughter how to follow her dreams in those areas. I also want to mention my dad. He was always there to help us with any goals or dreams that we had, and it's not my parents' fault that we grew up to be drug addicts. You know, all 3 of their kids grew up to be drug addicts. It's not their fault. You know, and I used to blame my parents for a long time. You know, and it's not their fault. You know, I believe we have deficiencies somewhere. Low self-esteem, codependency, non-love. I mean, all this stuff. So, my parents brought me up the best way they could. And my dad passed away almost 2 years ago. And he died with 16 years sober. It was an honor and privilege to take him to meetings when the judge told him he had to get sober.
Yeah.
And and it's awesome. I gotta mention this. It's awesome to see the people in my life that I've helped. It's awesome to see what they have done. Yesterday I was at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. And I added my senior daughter.
Oh, yeah.
She was doing so awesome.
I know she is.
She was doing so awesome. And it was like, wow. I felt so good and proud to see you raise your daughter like that and know that I had a part in that. And know that what I do with my kids, it was like I just sat there and I stood there at the counter and watched her for a while, because just amazing at seeing the wonderful things that God, the fellowships, and what we can do. And a lot of it comes from, it's not just, it's not just in the books. You mentioned the books. It's not just in the books. It's in the understanding. It's in the fellowship. It's in the meetings. It's in the people. It's in the steps, traditions, and the concept. It's the whole thing. I got to tell you, for me, it's the whole thing. My relationship with God. There's a lot that I think that I have to do to keep in balance, because I have to keep doing all these things. I have to, because if I don't, My daughter left, so I had to start washing. My daughter left 10 days ago, so I had to wash dishes. So I have to keep up those dishes because if I don't, I'm gonna get roaches.
Yeah.
You know, and there's little signs that if I don't keep up, that shit's gonna start falling to the wayside, including my attitude. I got a phone call the other day. It was Adam. He knew something was wrong with me because he had called me 2 times before. And, you know, we got it out. You know, he called me and said, you know, hey, what's going on? You know, and I could tell by his tone that he knew something was wrong, so I told him. You know, I just don't leave this stuff with my sponsor. My sponsor helps me. I don't sit there and call my sponsor for a lot of normal stuff. I mean, I've been with my sponsor 16 years. We're like way past all that. I don't call him for my problems. I call my sponsor because I have a dilemma and I have to make a decision on something, and he tells me the truth. But, you know, I remember one time I was having thoughts because I wasn't working a lot and my mom has an income that I was going to move my mom into my house so she can help me with her income. And my sponsor told me, Willie, are you sure you want to do that? He said, are you sure? Because you may not want to come home. And I took a look at that. And he's right. He's right, because my mom is she's no joke to deal with. So he taught me that your household is your main domain. If you can't stay clean in your household, how are you going to stay clean in your life? Your recovery starts at home, were his exact words. If your home life ain't good, then your recovery is gonna weaken, he said. And you're gonna know it. He said, I don't advise you to move your mom in because you really don't want her there. So you're not gonna go home, and next thing you know, you're gonna be calling me, what do I do now? So I'm gonna tell you now, don't do it.
Yeah.
And I do that with my sponsees too. They call me, but it's usually about a decision.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, they don't hardly ever call me with the same shit. It's always something new, and that's something that's good. You know, if I need to deal with the same old shit, I'll call my sponsor. He's not my sponsor. Yeah. Because what happens is, before they keep on calling me with the same old shit, and I'm calling them with the same old shit, they'll be like, fuck, why doesn't he get over that shit? And then they can see how that works in their lives.
Yeah.
And it does.
For me, I lean on my sponsors a lot, right? But when I'm going through something and my head tells me like, oh, you shouldn't be behaving this way, feeling this way, thinking this way because you got 11 years clean, I'm like, all right, I need to call someone that I'm not going to feel judgment. Even though they don't judge me, my head will tell me that they are. So let me just call Willie, right? Because Willie's fucked up enough to not judge me. Yeah. You know, it's funny because people used to share about that shit all the time too. He's like, yeah, you know, Cliff, right? Cliff would always talk about it. He said, oh, yeah, I got my sponsor, not because he's perfect, because he's fucked up and he tells me what not to do, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I do want to kind of, so my daughter turned 21 yesterday. Oh. Yeah, and me and her, we have conversations, man, like what it would be like if I didn't get clean. And she's the only one of my kids that remembers me and my addiction, right? She's the only one of my kids that knows what life was like before recovery, right? So I say that to say that she's the only one that's really clean or like really grateful for me to be clean, right? The other ones have no idea, and I'm glad they don't know what it's like for dad to be loaded. You know what I'm saying? For him to be, I mean, they were fucking like 2 and 3 when I got clean, you know, the other ones. And then Adam wasn't even born when I got clean, you know, so he's the only one that never seen me loaded ever, never, you know what I'm saying? I've been clean this whole life. For anybody who's listening, right? Like, my kids' life is different because of recovery, right? The program not only saved my life, but it saved their life, right? Because Raylene, she went through a lot. And I'm not going to like share all of her personal business, but you know, there was mental health, there was substance use, there was like all that stuff, right? And I'm not saying that she's a perfect kid now, right? But she's not a fucking addict. She's not, you know, doing what I was doing. She's not, you know, any of that stuff. She's an adult now, right? And I want to tell you that my greatest gift in recovery is being able to raise her to be a good human. Like, she's a fucking amazing person. Anybody that comes in contact with her will know how beautiful a person she is, and just just a good person. Her morals, her values, her standards for her life. I mean, she's just such an amazing fucking person, and she's such a hard worker. Like, she understands the value of family, and there's no way that I could have gotten this far in my life without her. You know what I'm saying? She was my saving grace. You know what I'm saying? She's the one that I didn't want to disappoint. She's the one I didn't want to let down. She's the one that like I know that I owed so much to her, and made me work 10 times harder for my recovery. When I got to my step 8 and 9, the hardest amends I had to make, right? The toughest one I had to make was to her, and she was 10 years old. She was 10 years old, and that was the toughest fucking amends I had to make. And to have to sit there with a 10-year-old and not treat her like some kid who didn't know what the fuck. I mean, she remembers being taken away. You know what I'm saying? She knows what it's like to be stripped from your parents by cops and CPS. You know what I'm saying? And to sit there and make an amends to this 10-year-old girl was life-changing for me. You know, and I remember when I got into all this, and I owed amends to my mom, my baby mom, or the mother of my children. I like to use that word a little bit better now. You know, my father, past relationships, my aunts, my uncles, my sisters, right? But this one was the toughest one, and I remember you telling me, right? And it was funny because who was it? It might have been Mike. I think it was Mike. We were talking about this yesterday, right? About promises, right?
Yeah.
Because we make promises. I made promises to her before, right? Her mother, right, makes promises to her, right? And then it goes deeper, right? Like, I remember the promises my dad made to me, right? Mike remembers the promises that his dad made to him, right? And it, like, all that stuff resurfaced yesterday. And I remember one of the first things you taught me about my amends. He said, never make promises you can't keep.
And you told me that.
Yeah, and I told him that.
Yep.
Right? So it's that ongoing knowledge that we get to learn, right? Because we make promises our whole addiction.
Even to stay clean, you told me.
Yeah.
You can't promise to stay clean.
No. That was a promise.
Yeah.
He said, don't make any promises you can't keep. So you cannot sit there and tell her that she'll never get loaded again.
Yeah.
Right? And so I didn't make that promise. But I promised her that I'm going to do everything in my power to stay in recovery and keep doing what I'm doing.
Yep.
And for the last 11 years, 10 years, right, whenever I made that amends to her, like, I've been able to keep. Right. And because of that, like, me and her, we have a really beautiful relationship. And it was rocky. You remember those times, right? She couldn't stand me, bro. And I couldn't stand her little ass either. I love you, Raylene, but there was a time where I couldn't stand her either. But I knew that it was, another thing you taught me in those moments. You said, you're not responsible for your disease, but you are responsible for your recovery. Right. So I'm not responsible for her attitude. I mean, I was in a sense, right? Everything that she was going through, I understood that it was my responsibility to be there for her no matter what. And because I did that, I firmly believe, because I was able to, like, be there for her, talk to her, right? Like love her, like, unconditionally, right? I truly believe that that's why she didn't turn out to be an addict. I truly believe that's why she's not on the streets, right? Like, there's no doubt in my mind, because this little girl was fucked up since a little kid, bro. Like, just odd behaviors, stealing. Like, there was just so much odd behaviors with her that I firmly believe within my heart, and I know she believes this too, so I can say it, right, is that if I wouldn't have got clean, she would have ended up just like us. She would, and I'm not saying that my 3 other kids don't got chances of being addicts. I'm sure they do. They got 2 fucked up parents, you know what I'm saying, that are both addicts. And not just that, but they got a bloodline that from on top, above us, that are all addicts too, right? Like, they're being raised by a single father who barely knows what the fuck he's doing most of the time, right? There's this inconsistency with their mother. There's all these factors that play into being an addict, right? But with Raylene, I think for her, the biggest thing was knowing that she had a dad that loved her, no matter what. And when I told her, when she was in high school, smoking and drinking, right, and I told her, you shouldn't be drinking, I didn't have a case of beer in the refrigerator. When I told her not to smoke, I didn't have a joint behind my ear. Right? When I told her not to behave in the ways that she was behaving, it's because dad was living in spiritual principles to the best visibility, right? so I wasn't a hypocrite. Because I remember vividly my mom telling me not to smoke with a cigarette behind her ear. How the fuck you going to tell me that? Right? Oh, don't do drugs. I found drugs in your drawer. I found drugs in the restroom. Like, you're just sitting here telling me not to do these things that you're doing. It. As a kid, all you thinking to yourself is, oh, you're a hypocrite. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, the happy birthday, Raylene. I love you. She is absolutely one of the most important people in my life. I'm proud of her no matter what. I'm always going to love her no matter what. And because of recovery, anytime she's going through something that she doesn't know what to do, right, she comes and talks to Dad. Right? She had a weight issue, recently. We figured out it was stemmed from depression because she wasn't working. She was worried about bills, all that stuff, right? And she was able to hey, Dad, I really need to talk to you. Right? And we were able to sit down, talk. She was able to cry. She was able to turn to me, bro. And, whatever my kids decide to do with their life, right? The most important thing for me is that I have a relationship with them and that they grow to be good humans, right? They don't have to be super successful. They don't got to be rich. Adam doesn't have to be a star athlete. He doesn't have to be, the greatest businessman to ever live. He doesn't have to be any of those things. If my son turns out to be a good man, that's all that matters to me. If my daughters turn out to be good women, that's all that matters to me, bro. Everything else to me, we could figure it out. We could work it out. We could learn how to get you a career. We could get you in school. We could do all that stuff. But if they just learn how to be good human beings, I feel like my job is done. And I feel like with Raylene, I was able to do that. She gives me hope for the rest of my kids and hope in me that I could fucking finish out raising my kids. We got 10 years. So 10 years I'm going to be free. And, Raylene's a fucking amazing. I love that kid so much. Even Mike, when Mike met her, he was like, how old is she? I think she was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
20 maybe.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, she doesn't even seem that age because she's just such a good fucking respectful kid, bro. And I love her to death. Yeah.
I want to mention a couple things before we go. One is for those people who suffer from family issues.
Yep.
I love my daughter, and I have an older daughter too that I recently we found each other 2 years ago. So I got some grandkids that 3 of them I've never met. I've met the baby, and my daughter loves who I am. My 2 daughters and my son, they love who I am, and one of the things I am is I'm not stuck on family. The way blood families, the way we're brought up. I'm not stuck on that today. I believe in family is what you make of it. And because even though I do have blood family, I've also have other family, my sponsees. It's not just the sponsorship with my sponsees. It's love, it's family.
Yeah.
Friendship, all of it, all the above. With my other sponsees, my grand sponsees, with everybody. Mm-hmm. And I also want to thank my stepmother Lorna, who's always been there for me, even though she's always been the black sheep of the blood family. She's always been there for me, and she's always taught me love. And my dad and my parents have taught me love, but I had to leave a lot of that. And Lorna's always been there for me. She still is there for me. She will always be there for me because she's taught me that family doesn't always have to be blood. And with that, a lot of the NA people, a lot of the other fellowships, people at church, people at my jobs, everywhere that I go, there's always people that are positive and loving. And that's who I choose to be around. It's real simple. Mm-hmm. If you're out there, people, and you're hanging around with people that are getting older, that's what's going to happen. Yeah. If you're hanging around people that are positive, that's what's going to happen. You hang around with people that are blaming things on other people like I did for decades, then that's what you're going to do. I think we are a lot of us are victims of our surroundings, but if we change it, I think we can have a better life.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, Willie. There's normally a question I ask, but he kind of answered it.
Yeah, he did.
So, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. And Adam.
Yeah. Oh, so go ahead and make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this message with anybody who might need to hear it, who needs to hear Willie's story or any of the other stories that we have already posted. And yeah, man, show some love and support.
And if you need to reach out and aren't sure how to, we have an email address. The message is hopepodcast@gmail.com. Yeah. All right. See you next week.
But you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes. As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.